Hey everyone, first book review in a few months, I think, because the last book I actually read, it was an Audible book, was Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning, which is massive. I think I don't know, it might be 20, it might be 40, it doesn't make a difference. It takes a long time to get through. And then after reading that, I've reread a few books that I read last year, which I thought were worth reading again, which might be worth its own review. Anyway, Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning, you probably know 12 Rules for Life and Beyond Chaos, his second book, which are both really, really good. I think they're brilliant. Really good advice gleaned from his decades of teaching and clinical psychology practice. Superb books. Two of the best books I read last year, actually listened to last year. Maps of Meaning is a book he wrote over 14 or 15 years, spending 3 hours a day on it. It's very, very, very heavy going. It's like his undergraduate text. I mean, this is a guy who taught at Harvard and University of Toronto, so a lot of stuff in it. But it's worth reading. It's worth listening to. I'm going to listen to it again on double speed. I think what I did is I went all the way up to about 18 hours in and accidentally skipped back to the beginning. And then when I got to the second time I'd listened to 18 hours, I thought, I've heard all this before. And then when I looked to see the point at which I was hearing new stuff, it was about 18 and a half hours in. I thought, oh my God, that's why it's taken so long, right? But I mean, one of the things, really interesting points I got from there is myths are not in any way inferior to to scientific beliefs. It's just a different set of tools for looking at the world with. So scientists have empiricism, but even science, if you look back onto it, is based on the idea of a holy trinity. There's some basic assumptions. Everything can be broken down into assumptions, and nothing is free of assumptions, and therefore probably nothing is absolutely unprovable. There's a lot of reference. I mean, Peterson's obviously extremely well read, extremely well educated. He knows his stuff. Lots of people don't like him. I don't think there's a good reason for that. He is a guy who I actually think deserves his acclaim. He's not one of these overnight celebrities. This is a guy who's worked and studied and researched and thought and refined his ideas and challenged his ideas for decades. He's a very good source of information. I mean, look, if you're a bibliophile like I am, and I imagine if you're watching book reviews, you probably are, one of the things you get from listening to Jordan Peterson is all the different writers he refers to illustrate points. And the reason for that is myths and stories and famous stories, that enduring stories, classics. The classics for a reason, because they deal with certain narratives, certain ideas, certain themes that run through the whole idea of, the whole basis of the human psyche. The idea of the the hero and so many things, which is really interesting if you read a lot or if you like writing stories as well, because I've been writing a story at the same time, and as I was writing it, listening to Peterson's stuff, I thought, wow, that theme's in the story. I didn't even realize. So a lot of this stuff almost seems subconscious. So you'll hear him talking about Dostoevsky, you'll hear him talking about Jung, you'll hear him talking about the Bible, and he knows all this stuff inside out. So just to be, you go and watch a really good speaker or you listen to a really good lecturer, and just the breadth of knowledge that the person has can be interesting. But it's the same with Jordan Peterson. I imagine most people will never get will never get through the whole damn thing. It's long, it's heavy. Sometimes you think, what is he talking about? But then occasionally you hear something, you think that's amazing. That's really, yeah, I can relate to that. That's really interesting. It kind of reminded me of the idea that you should never be the cleverest person in the room, or if you are, you need to look for another room. Listening to his stuff stretches. It certainly stretched my intellect, and it's also given me a list of other things I'd love to read. Stuff, a lot of it I read when I was younger. I found something by Dostoevsky on a bookshelf somewhere. I thought, it's meant to be a classic, I'll read it, and I probably read it, and it went through me. It was like trying to explain calculus to somebody who's never looked at numbers. The themes in it, the underlying themes. Now, that is not to take away from the idea that reading is for pleasure, but reading can also, it gives you ideas, it stretches your imagination, makes you look at things in different ways. And this is all benefits, these thoughts are all things that are coming from listening to the very, very, very heavy book, lecture, that is Maps of Meaning. Now, if you're interested in psychology, if you're interested in human behaviour, if you're interested in literature, it's worth reading. Simple as that. Although, simply because of how heavy going it is, I'm not going to give it, like a 10 out of 10 or anything. I mean, just for knowledge and just for information, I'll give it 10 out of 10. But actually, is something you want to read, I'll probably give it about a 6 out of 10. But that said, I'll give his other two books probably 9 or 10 out of 10. They're brilliant, but they were written more. If you, let's say, if you, they were more distilled. So if you'd gone and sat down with somebody you're a big fan of, I don't know, one of these, anybody. Let's say you go to a concert and you watch your favorite musician. And what you're hearing is snippets of everything they know. That song that he wrote, that one piece, is a little tip of the iceberg. You're not getting all the exercise he put into it, how he came to it, and all the background stuff. That's what you get with Maps of Meaning. Whereas his other books that he's written are really just distilled knowledge. So this is nearly a 6-minute review, which I consider slightly long. So I'm going to leave it at that. I hope that's at least made some people think it might be worth checking out Maps of Meaning, because it is quite an impressive book. And if not, maybe you'll go and check out one of the other things I've mentioned. Anything by Dostoevsky, anything. Hell, maybe you'll even go and read the Bible. Some interesting themes in that. But the Bible has endured for so long. Let's take religion out of it. Let's not say it's endured because it's the word of God. Yeah, and the apostles maybe. But it seems to have endured for so long because it has those fundamental human narratives and themes running through it. One of the rules from one of Jordan Peterson's books is do not carelessly denigrate social institutions. They become institutions because the rules and the practices they are based on generally are a good idea. Generally, that's why they endure. And the same as many of the lessons in the Bible. Maybe they're divine, maybe they're not, but there's a lot of sense in there. So just if you want to hear all these really clever quotes that you think, damn, that's a good idea, and have them explained in a context that you can relate to, just for that, read Maps of Meaning, okay? I'm not going to say it's a terrible book that you should definitely read. It's a very difficult book that you probably won't get through, but it's definitely worth a read. All right.